Welcome to An Interview in History. Imagine a podcast that serves as a bridge across time, connecting listeners to the voices of history's most impactful figures. Each episode is a deep dive into the lives and legacies of these individuals, exploring not just their well-documented achievements, but also uncovering lesser-known facts that shaped their contributions to our world. From scientists who unlocked the mysteries of the universe to activists who fought for social change, each story is a testament to the indelible mark they left on society. This journey through history will not only educate, but also inspire listeners to appreciate the intricate tapestry of human progress. This week on An Interview in History, we're talking with Edward John Smith, the captain of the RMS Titanic. However, we're doing something a bit different in this episode. Instead of being in the studio, this interview is aboard one of the most beautiful ships ever built, the Titanic, as Captain Smith is readying the ship for its maiden voyage. This interview takes place on April 8th, 1912. Captain Smith, it's an honor to speak with you. Let's begin with your early life. Where were you born, and what was your family like?
Thank you. I was born January 27th, 1850, in Hanley, Staffordshire, England, though Longton is often credited as my birthplace. My father, Edward Smith, was a potter, like many men in the region, and my mother, Catherine, kept the family together. I had a sister, Thirza, and we grew up modestly but respectably.
What can you tell me about your sister Thirza?
My sister Thirza. She was my only sibling, and though our lives took very different paths, we remained close. Thirza was born in 1843, 7 years before me, and she stayed in Staffordshire while I ventured off to sea. She led a more traditional life compared to mine. While I was drawn to the maritime world, she remained in our hometown, building a life within the community. Though she didn't seek the adventure of the open waters as I did, she always supported my career. Family has always been important to me, even when my duties kept me away. I regret not spending more time with Thirza and the rest of my loved ones over the years. The life of a seaman is not an easy one. It demands time, sacrifice, and long separations. But I always knew when I returned home, my family would be there, welcoming me back.
Did you always dream of a life at sea?
Not at first. Being from an industrial area, the sea was not an obvious choice, but I was drawn to it. At the age of 13, I left school and moved to Liverpool, a great maritime city, to begin my training.
What kind of schooling did you have?
My formal schooling was limited, as was common then. I attended Etruria British School in Staffordshire, but real learning came from experience. I apprenticed as a seaman and studied navigation at a young age.
Did you have any military service before becoming a captain?
Indeed. I joined the Royal Naval Reserve and eventually earned the rank of lieutenant. This gave me valuable training in commanding vessels and dealing with high-pressure situations at sea.
What about your personal life? You were a family man, weren't you?
Yes. I married my beloved wife, Sarah Eleanor Pennington, in 1887. We had one daughter, Helen Melville Smith, who is the joy of my life. My career kept me away from home for long periods, but I always cherished the time with my family in Southampton.
When did you begin your life at sea?
I started as an apprentice in 1867 with Gibson and Company, and later moved to White Star Line in 1880. My first command came in 1887 when I took charge of the Republic. That was the beginning of a long career with the company. White Star Line entrusted you with many prestigious ships. How did you build that reputation? I gained reputation for reliability and safety. I commanded several notable ships, including the Majestic, Baltic, and Adriatic. By 1904, I was known as the millionaire's captain because wealthy passengers preferred to sail with me. The Olympic was your last command before the Titanic. Was she difficult to handle? Oh, the Olympic was a grand ship. But yes, maneuvering such large vessels presented new challenges. She had a minor collision with HMS Hawke in 1911, but we managed to get her back in service quickly. That experience helped prepare me for the Titanic. Now, speaking of the Titanic, what are your thoughts about her before sailing? She is the largest, most advanced ship ever built. Nearly unsinkable, they say. I believe in her strength and capabilities. It's an honor to command her, and I look forward to a smooth maiden voyage to New York. I also heard that this is to be your final voyage before retirement. How does that feel? Yes, I've planned to retire after this voyage. I've spent over 40 years at sea, and I'm ready to enjoy time with my wife and daughter. But duty calls, and I have one final journey to complete. How does it feel to be entrusted with the most unsinkable ship? It's an immense honor. The Titanic is a marvel of modern engineering. Her size, luxury, and advanced safety features has set her apart from any ship before her. To be given command of such a vessel is the pinnacle of my career. There's a great sense of pride, not just for me, but for the entire crew and the White Star Line. We truly believe she is the safest ship afloat. With her double-bottom hull, watertight compartments, and the latest technology, she's built to withstand almost anything the sea could throw at her. Of course, with such responsibility also comes great pressure. The eyes of the world are on this maiden voyage. Wealthy and influential passengers will be aboard, and expectations are high, but I have every confidence in my officers, my crew, and the ship herself. I believe we're making history, setting new standard for ocean travel. You'll oversee a lot of high-profile people. How do you handle that? Throughout my career, I've had the privilege of commanding ships that carried some of the most distinguished passengers in the world. Wealthy businessmen, politicians, even royalty. Many have sailed under my command. The Titanic is no different, and I take that responsibility very seriously. The key to handling high-profile individuals is professionalism and discretion. They expect the highest standards of service, safety, and comfort, and I assure you that my crew delivers nothing less. At the same time, I treat every passenger with equal care and respect, whether they are traveling in first class or steerage. Many of our esteemed guests on this voyage, Mr. John Jacob Astor IV, Benjamin Guggenheim, Isidore and Ida Strauss, among others, are seasoned travelers. They understand the nature of sea travel, and my duty is to reassure them that they are in the safest hands possible. I maintain a visible presence, always available to address concerns, but I also trust my officers and stewards to uphold the White Star Line's impeccable reputation. In the end, whether a passenger is a millionaire or an immigrant seeking a new life, my responsibility remains the same, to bring them safely across the Atlantic. And that is what I intend to do. How do you feel about the crew you will oversee? I have the utmost confidence in my crew. Many of them have served with me before on other White Star Line vessels, including the Olympic, and I know them to be skilled, disciplined, and dedicated to their duties. My officers are among the finest seamen in the industry. Chief Officer Henry Wilde, First Officer William Murdoch, and Second Officer Charles Lightolier are all experienced men, capable of handling any challenge the sea may present. They know their roles well, and I trust them to make the right decisions in my absence. The Titanic also has an exceptional engineering team, led by Chief Engineer Joseph Bell. Running a ship of this magnitude requires expertise beyond the ordinary, and I have no doubt they will keep her engines and systems operating flawlessly. As for the stewards, chefs, and other service staff, they are among the best trained in the world. They understand that this is not just a voyage, it's an experience for the passengers. Every detail, from the dining service to cabin accommodations, must be perfect. I have no doubt they will rise to the occasion. A captain is only as strong as his crew, and I'm proud to command these men and women. Together, we will ensure that the Titanic's maiden voyage is nothing short of extraordinary. What plans do you have after this final voyage? After more than 40 years at sea, I'm ready to retire and spend my remaining years with my family. My wife, Sarah, and our daughter, Helen, have sacrificed so much due to my long absences at sea, and I owe it to them to finally settle down. I plan to return to our home in Southampton and enjoy a quieter life. Perhaps I'll take up gardening or simply relish in the comforts of home, things that a life at sea does not often allow. I look forward to watching Helen grow, guiding her into adulthood and making up for lost time with my wife. There's also a sense of satisfaction in ending my career with the Titanic. She is the grandest ship ever built, a symbol of progress and innovation. What better way to conclude my service than by safely delivering her on her maiden voyage? Of course, the sea will always be part of me. I imagine I'll still visit the docks now and then, share a story or two with old shipmates, and watch as a new generation of captains takes the helm. But as for commanding another vessel, no. After the Titanic, my sailing days will be behind me. It will be time to rest. Captain Smith, I know that you were preparing the Titanic for her maiden voyage. What does that entail? Preparing the Titanic for her maiden voyage is no small task. A ship of this magnitude requires careful attention to every detail, from navigation and safety to passenger accommodations and crew readiness. First and foremost, my officers and I must ensure that the ship is seaworthy and ready for a transatlantic journey. That means conducting thorough inspections, checking the hull, lifeboats, watertight compartments, and all navigational equipment. Though she's already undergone sea trials near Belfast, I must personally verify that everything is in perfect working order. Next, I oversee the crew. We have over 900 men and women aboard, including officers, engineers, stewards, and deckhands. Each must be familiar with their duties, especially in emergency situations. We conduct drills, review safety protocols, and ensure that communication between departments is efficient. Then there's the matter of passenger service. The Titanic offers an unparalleled level of luxury, and every stateroom, dining hall, and social space must be ready to meet the expectations of our distinguished guests. I check in with Chief Steward Hugh McElroy and Head Chef Charles Proctor to ensure provisions are stocked and the ship's service is of the highest standard. Finally, I worked closely with the White Star Line's management to finalize our route and schedule. We aim to make a swift but comfortable crossing to New York. Speed is important, but safety is my highest priority. This is a tremendous responsibility, but I have every confidence that the Titanic will prove herself to be the finest ship ever to sail. Captain Smith, thank you for sharing your story. We wish you and the Titanic a safe and successful voyage. Thank you. I have every confidence that we shall arrive in New York without incident. Of course, we all know what happened during the voyage. Around 11:40 p.m., a crew member spotted an iceberg in the path of the Titanic, but the crew was unable to move away in time. The ship scraped against the iceberg and suffered damage to its forward area. Several holes had been made in the ship's side, allowing seawater to begin rushing in. Soon after the collision, Smith went to the bridge and worked on assessing the situation. He soon learned that the ship was on its way down and ordered that the crew prepare the lifeboats. The first distress call went out after midnight. Unprepared for such an event, the Titanic did not have enough lifeboats to carry all of its passengers to safety. Smith tried to manage the situation the best he could, helping with the loading of the boats and managing the transmission of distress calls. He was last seen headed for the bridge. After 2 a.m. in the morning, the Titanic fully slipped into the dark, cold waters of the North Atlantic, taking its captain with it. Several stories emerged about how his life ended. There are reports that he had shot himself on the bridge. Another had him in the water, swimming with an infant in tow, and putting the child on a lifeboat before slipping beneath the water. It is commonly held, however, that Smith followed the marine tradition of remaining aboard his doomed vessel. And now, another forgotten history. On April 18, 1912, the RMS Carpathia arrived in New York, having rescued passengers and crew from the Titanic after it struck an iceberg and sank on April 15, 1912. Carpathia, a Cunard Line transatlantic steamship, received a distress call from the unsinkable Titanic as it was making its way from New York to Austria-Hungary. Carpathia's captain, Arthur Rostron, later testified that the distance to the Titanic was 58 nautical miles, or 67 miles, and was expected to take 3.5 hours to reach the doomed liner, as its top speed was about 14.5 knots. However, braving dangerous ice fields of its own, Rostron ordered extra stokers to fuel coal. Those decisions helped accelerate the ship to more than 17 knots, and the Carpathia arrived on the scene approximately an hour and 40 minutes after the Titanic went down. For the next 4.5 hours, the ship rescued 706 survivors from the Titanic lifeboats. Titanic survivors arrived in New York, but not where they had expected to dock. Titanic's first destination was to be Pier 59, which was owned by the White Star Line. Instead, the Titanic survivors arrived in New York on the Carpathia. After a brief stop at Pier 59 to drop off the lifeboats from Titanic, the Carpathia traveled a few blocks south to dock at the Cunard Pier, Pier 54. Anxious crowds of people, numbering in the thousands, awaited the arrival of the Carpathia and news of loved ones. The same pier also played a pivotal role in another ill-fated ship disaster. Just 3 years later, in 1915, the ship Lusitania left from Pier 54 before being torpedoed by a German U-boat off the coast of Ireland on May 7th. The Lusitania sank in less than 20 minutes, killing almost all of the 2,000 passengers and crew. Now part of Hudson River Park, the only obvious hint of its historical significance is the rusted arch that used to form the entrance, with the original shipyard lettering, barely readable, Cunard White Star. left untouched and eroding out of either respect or neglect, probably both. The gate now frames the South Bridge entrance to Little Island, a 2-acre public open space built on a platform over the Hudson River. Join us next week when we talk with Jefferson F. Davis, an American politician who served as the first and only president of the Confederate States. Until then, take care.